Allison, are you familiar with the Backyardigans?
Yes. However, you're a little bit younger than I am, so it wasn't something that I watched.
Yeah. Well, if I showed you a picture of the Backyardigans, would you be able to say which one you identify most with?
Probably not. Is that sad?
You just denied my whole game.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Which one do you identify with?
Tyrone.
Why?
Obviously, because he's awesome, and I'm awesome.
Which one do you think I identify with?
Uniqua.
Why?
She's fun. Did I say that about Tyrone, too?
Maybe.
My only vocabulary word is fun.
It's fun.
Yeah. Uniqua's a little spunky. She's got a lot of personality, and I think you bring a lot of spunk to everything you do.
Okay.
So why I ask is that Tori Garris is here this week,
Ooh.
and she has created her own kids show. So she is an actress turned corporate employee turned creator of a children's show. It's called Torbee, and it's available on YouTube.
We're excited to hear Tori's story
Mm-hmm.
and how she came to create Torbee.
Mm-hmm.
And we want you to see how this fits into the Vision 30 network.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked a lot about intervention, but Torbee fits more in the upstream
Yep, the prevention space
part of Mending Futures.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really excited to hear a story of prevention and to hear her heart behind the creation of this story.
Mm-hmm. I was pleasantly surprised to see that it goes much deeper than just a kids show. So I think we were both pretty touched in filming this episode. So we hope you enjoy.
I have something really serious to share before we get started. I really wanted to wear a certain set of earrings this morning, but I couldn't get my act together to get myself coordinated and get a couple of kids out the door. And so I was a little bit in my feelings when I got here today that I was not wearing the earrings because for some reason the earrings set the tone for the day. And I like this shirt, but I don't love it as much as I loved the earrings.
Yeah.
So the earrings are Corduroy the Bear, and they're large size earrings. And when I knew that you were the guest, I thought that'll kind of go along with the spirit of what we're going to talk about. And a really dear friend gave me the earrings, and she had a baby this week. So it was just going to be like a whole thing. So I get here this morning. One person who works here has on the most fabulous corduroy pants.
And it's not me.
Because I love your pants.
And then my co-host shows up, and she has on fabulous corduroy pants. And I don't live close to the studio, so it's not like I could just run home and get the earrings. So I just want you to know if I seem a little down, if I seem... It's
There's
serious.
a justified reason.
It's serious.
She's grieving. So.
But at least you're wearing yellow. Yellow's bright. Yellow's good.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's strong and brave.
Right.
She'll get through it.
Right.
Oh, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. We're so excited.
Oh, thank you.
Did you know that you're like a bucket list guest for this podcast?
Me?
Yeah, Liam.
Did you know that?
specifically,
No.
Our producer Liam, he like as soon as we knew we were transitioning to a podcast, he was like, "We got to get Tori Garris."
You just made my day. That's amazing.
Love
Well, I'm thrilled. I'm honored to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Do you want to explain in your own words what it is you do?
Yes.
Yeah, who are you?
Who am I? So I'm Tori Garris. I created the Sweet Wholesome Kids show, Torbee. And Torbee slows things down in a fast-paced world. It's very much, think modern-day Mr. Rogers meets Reading Rainbow meets Sesame Street. So it has all the nostalgic vibes from my childhood, my parents' childhoods, but it's more for today's kids. So it's a little bit more engaging. It's a little bit quicker paced than those shows, but still very much keeping the true roots of those shows.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
I just got chills hearing you talk about it, and I already knew what it was.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for other people.
See, you're already not down.
Yeah.
You're already happy.
Thanks, Tori.
You're so welcome. I do what I can.
Okay, our first fun little question. When you were a kid, what's the first thing you remember wanting to be?
An
when you
actress.
grew up? Really?
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping you would say that.
Yeah, I was one of those kids where I never questioned what I wanted to be. My earliest memory of a story that I've been told all my life was that when I was in first grade, my parents went in for my parent-teacher conference, and my music teacher, Mr. Glander, at the time, they walked in, they were like, "Hi, we're Tori Buckley's parents." And he goes, "You're Tori Buckley's parents?" And they right away were like, "That's not a good
We're
sign."
scared.
And he goes, "You need to get that girl on stage. She has
Aw.
absolutely no stage fright. You have no idea how uncommon that is." And so from then on, I just have always loved being on stage. I've always loved performing. So I've always wanted to be an actress.
Why? How?
I don't know. I just have loved, I think the no stage fright bit has just then served me in liking being on stage. It's comfortable for me. It doesn't matter the size of the audience. I like being in an element where I'm either doing something as myself or I'm acting and portraying a character. I like bringing stories to life. So it's not like I ever saw something and thought, I want to do what they're doing. It's just always been, I've always loved and felt comfortable on stage. And then later on camera.
Like, I just think it would be so fun, but I just don't. I don't have the, like, performance gene, you know?
I disagree. I think you're performing well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things I didn't have to, like, there are plenty of things I'm terrible at. This is just one of those things that it was one of my God-given gifts. And so I like being able to now use it in this way.
Yeah.
Tell us something you're bad at.
Organization.
Same.
It's weird because I like being organized. And so my mom talks about how I did this all throughout my life, that my room would start out really nice and I would go for hours to clean it, make everything have a place. But then my life very much shows up in how my house is or my room or my car. So if my life gets busy, then everything in my life also gets really busy and chaotic. And then until I snap and I'm finally like, okay, I need to get everything in order and get everything organized, but I'm not by nature an organized, tidy person.
Yeah. It's
My
like
calendar, all of it.
Yeah,
I feel
there's a
that.
line,
Yeah.
an unspoken line where it's like, okay, now it's chaos and I can't handle it anymore.
Yes, it's an unspoken.
You never know when it's going to hit.
No.
It's just like, all right, now we have to clean up the entire thing.
Yes.
And I haven't done that in weeks.
I literally just did yesterday because we had my daughter's birthday party yesterday.
Oh,
so I said,
fun.
I have to get the house clean. But it took hours. So it just, that all admin related things are not my strong points. I can do those things well, but it's only because I have to work extremely hard at them. So just like maybe this isn't like in your nature, you're not thrilled about going and being on stage in front of 10,000 people, but you could get to the point where you'd be more comfortable in that. So I have worked on some of my weaknesses, and being on time is another one. So anyways, do you want me to just share all of my weaknesses?
No,
Because I'll just dump.
Keep
Yeah.
That is fascinating, though.
We won't
Yeah.
say any of ours.
Of
and
course
you
not.
just-
It can just be me.
Right. It's all about you.
Yeah. I'm too loud. I'm too bossy.
No.
Let's go back to the actress part. You went to Chicago.
I grew up in Chicago.
Okay, so you grew up in Chicago, and you were an actress in Chicago.
Mhm.
Tell us about that. Tell us some stories about it.
Yeah, I went to a community college because my parents thankfully played a good part in that. They knew that I always wanted to be an actress. So they said, well, here's the deal. You can go and spend a lot of money on a bachelor's degree that you may never be able to pay back with the career choice that you have, or you can go to a community college, still get some good experience. And I decided, well, if I go to a community college, I can just bulk up my resume as an actress. I can do a ton of shows. So I did, and I
Was it like mostly stage stuff, or was it
all
on camera?
stage.
Okay.
Yeah, all stage at that point. And I ended up, when I was then 20 years old, I auditioned for my second professional show and got it. And so it was as I was about to wrap up and get my associate's degree. And I thought, well, if I'm landing another professional gig without a bachelor's degree, why am I going to go and spend all this money, all this time on a piece of paper that in my career field won't serve me at all? So I landed my second professional gig and literally moved to Chicago and thought, okay, well, downtown, because I was in the suburbs. So I moved downtown and thought, okay, well, I need to also learn how to be on camera. And so I took some different acting intensives downtown, different film intensives, and just tried to network myself and get to know people that were in the world rather than on, in a school setting. It was just much more real life application, auditioning. And so I had a couple agents and I did a whole bunch of things that no one has ever seen or heard of. I did little small commercials. And so I was a paid actress. I was a paid starving actress, but I did that for a few years downtown until my mid-20s, basically.
So with that experience, did you then, like, watching plays, watching movies, watching TV shows, like, do you look at them with, like, a critical eye? Do you look at them with, like, the behind-the-scenes stuff in mind? Or are you able to still, like, enjoy it?
Both and. I can still enjoy, but if I don't believe a performance, then I get really critical.
Yeah.
Because then I think to myself, like, why didn't someone tell them this is not believable? We don't believe what
Who's
you're saying.
directing this?
Yes, yeah. And so if I'm able to it's because I come alive with Broadway performances. I also like movies as well, but I've always been much more of a Broadway baby than maybe a baby of the film and Hollywood and everything. So if I'm watching a show, I'm much less critical because it's just the magic for me. But if I'm watching a movie and the performance is just not believable, that's when I do get critical.
Yeah. What's your favorite Broadway show? I'm so sorry.
No, go you. That's good. But I have something that's more important.
Yeah.
All right. So you win this round.
Yeah.
But what is your favorite Broadway show?
Well, two. One is more obscure and less well known. It's called Next to Normal.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful story of a woman, a mom, who lost her son when he was 2 years old, had a daughter, and now that her daughter is in high school, she still sees her son as if he has grown the whole time. So it's a really strong picture of what that mental illness looks like. And it is, I sobbed. Yeah. I sobbed with the music. I sobbed seeing it on stage. It's so powerful. So that's one. But then the other one, I'm a sucker for Hamilton. Hamilton is...
I was listening to it on the way here.
So good. Yeah. So good.
Yeah. What's the weirdest thing you've ever done as a paid actress? Like, weird commercial, like, when you look back on something you did in your 20s, is there anything really cringy?
Probably a student film. I don't remember the name of it, but it was filmed in, like, no man's land, Illinois.
Like the Blair Witch Project?
No, but I was 20 years old, and I played an older mom to a girl that was, like, 4 years younger than me. And so they dressed me, but I've always looked young for my age. And
you don't look like an older mom.
No,
now.
And so they like added some gray to my hair, and I was like, "This is a film. This is not a stage production. No one's going to believe that I'm this girl's mom."
I have the hard contour lines of the wrinkles.
Yes, I had the wrinkles and like and my dressing. Like they gave me these like suits, and it was just so. That was I never even saw the final product of that, but I remember while we were filming, I thought to myself many times, this is really weird. Actually, now I'm remembering another like dusty memory. There was a film that I was in where it was like a horror, and it was a short film, and I had to go and buy my clothes from Goodwill, and because we had to like cut them up to then give me blood, and I never saw the final product of that either. I don't need to, but it was called The Sign or something, and it was not good.
I feel like both of those are going to be a really easy way to segue into why you're doing what you're doing now. So remember that when we get to that question.
Yes, perfect.
Since you were an old mom.
Yeah.
and then you were buying something to turn into a horror movie. So I think those are clear reasons why you landed where you are landing right now.
Actually, what brought me to where I am now is totally separate from that. Because as I was a professional actress, I truly believe that this was just a God-given gift, and it was something that I was excited about. I felt like this is what the Lord wants me to do with my life. And so when I was getting paid for different roles, they were such small amounts that, of course, I was supplementing with serving jobs and bartending and things like that. Well, I kept getting offered roles that were going against my beliefs and my moral compass. And at first it was easy to turn down, but then the money gets better and the potential doors that open get more exciting.
Right.
And so I started to almost justify, well, I just won't show my parents this one. Well, I just won't tell these friends that I was in this film. And they weren't horrible. It wasn't nudity, but which in my opinion, for me, I wouldn't want to do nudity. But I kept almost accepting these roles. And I got to a point where I was like angry, crying with the Lord one night. I was like, if this is what I'm doing for you, why do you keep only giving me these roles that I have to keep turning down? And it was like he quietly said to my spirit, because you say you're doing this for me, but you're doing this for you. And I had a hard look in the mirror and I thought, I don't know how else to do this. I don't know then how to not do this for me. So I stopped and went into the corporate world. I am not fitted for the corporate world, but I forced myself in like a square peg in a round hole and did a ton of different jobs, a ton of different industries. When we ended up here, the first person I ever met here in Lynchburg, we knew some people, but the first new person I met worked for Freedom 424. Okay. And we went to a gala like the very next week. And I was just shocked at, oh my gosh, like here we thought we picked Lynchburg, but we think actually like the Lord picked Lynchburg for us. And when I then had the idea of doing Torbee, it was because my son and I were watching an annoying show on repeat, and annoying for me, on repeat. And I thought to myself, I could do this, but make it a little less annoying. And I then remembered, wait, I've also done some kid stuff. I was Alice in Wonderland for this Princess Party company. And I did Pinkalicious for this like park district. So then that was then what kind of brought everything full circle.
You look like Snow White.
Oh, I'll take that. True. Yeah, we with the haircut.
Yes. We can be her dwarves. Yes. 2 of the 7 dwarves.
Yes.
Well, okay. I'll be a dwarf.
Okay.
Would you be grumpy or no? You would be happy. You're much more happy.
I love that grumpy.
You might be grumpy.
Sleepy.
Any of those.
Oh my gosh. Are you willing to say what show you were watching that was annoying you?
We were watching Blippi. Blippi's got a huge following, and Blippi is a smart businessman, and what he has created. Lots of kids love Blippi, lots of parents love Blippi. And so I also don't want to ever be someone that is like, you know, raining on someone else's parade.
But it inspired you to make something.
You could do it differently.
Yes. It was just, in my opinion, for my household and my kids, it was a little too overstimulating. The amount of pop-ups and just it was a little too much for what I really ultimately wanted to have on in my household. And I just felt like it was a little too addicting. So that was my opinion. But we then decided, I could do something like that, but make it less addicting, make it a little less overstimulating, and that's kind of what led to this.
You kind of mentioned this already, but how did you get from Chicago to Lynchburg? And I love that you said, we thought we picked Lynchburg, but maybe the Lord picked Lynchburg. So tell us, how did you get from the Midwest to Lynchburg?
The shortest way I can tell the story is that all of our family is on the East Coast now. And so we then, when we got pregnant, only a few months after being married, we wanted to then be near our family. And we had friends that came here for Liberty like 20 years ago. And they said, oh my gosh, like Lynchburg is this gem. It's this hidden place that is a great place to raise a family, but most people don't really know about it. So when we came and visited, we fell in love with it. So the longer version is that we were not planning on starting a family right away. I was not planning on starting a family right away. My husband would have been happy with the honeymoon baby. But we met because he's from West Virginia. And my sister and brother-in-law ended up in West Virginia, met him, said, cool. If Zach and Tori meet, they'll get married. We met, and 4 months and 4 days later, we got married. So at our 1-year wedding anniversary, which was only 1 year and 4 months of knowing each other, I had a big old belly, and it was... All right. And so very quickly then we got pregnant, but my parents wanted to be near the grandkids. So they closed on closed on their home in West Virginia. And like that day we found out we were pregnant. So that's the longer version. But yeah, the family. But we wanted to be near family, but have a place that was our own, that we could plant roots, that was new to both of us. So that's what brought us here.
So how do you get from the idea of, I could make a show that is more my taste, more suited for my family and maybe for other families out there, to actually making it happen?
Well, it started with just the idea, and thankfully, even though the job I was working at was not my favorite job, again, it was just, I wasn't fitted for the corporate world. I had some friends that worked there that also had different skills, like someone who did music and someone who did graphic design and someone who was a writer. And so it was this, oh my gosh, if I've got these friends that are willing to kind of help me out at the beginning, that was then what helped me at least start trying on camera. And the first episodes we ever filmed were terrible. We took them down. We realized, okay, this idea needs a lot of refining. And then I ended up meeting our team that is now our core team. We now are a team of about 30 people.
Amazing.
But almost 2 years ago now, and it was the fall of 2022 is when I met my now executive producer and director of photography. And working with them has allowed us to really solidify the foundation. They very early on just bought into the vision like I did. We all just felt like we know that parents need this type of show today. We did market research and really verified that, okay, we know we're onto a good idea. We know other parents want shows like this. It's not just our household. We know other families want this. And it was a lot of trial and error. And then once we started to solidify our team and have a post-production team, and we've got a puppeteer team, and we've got a music team, and it's really cool how it took time, but it's been fun then building something. And we officially launched then on July 1st this summer, where we felt like, okay, now we have enough to show. We've got our pilot season essentially, where this is what we are, who we are. We know exactly what our foundation is. And so now, okay, world, here we are.
That's exciting hearing you talk about it, because I met you probably early 2022.
Yeah.
So you were still in the kind of figuring it out phase, discerning phase of a lot of this. And it's been neat to see you from afar figuring it out and making it a reality.
I forgot that we met that early. I think I was pregnant still with Jade when we met.
You were.
And it was a lot of, you start with an idea and feel like, okay, well, here's this idea and I like all these things. And so then that idea starts to explode and you think, oh, we could do this and we could do this and we could do this. And then you start trying things and you realize, okay, this was good in theory, but it's not actually good now that we've put it into application. Or, well, this is good, but it's not quite right. And so we need to refine it. And it takes so much more time than I was expecting, really, for this to be about 3.5 years to get to the point where we felt like, okay, we actually are ready to show the world what Torbee is almost shocking, but also really cool, because I by nature am so fast and just go. And we'll just do it and we'll just figure it out as we go. And we really love that we decided to take our time and let ideas breathe and slow down, like the nature of the show. We really wanted to make sure that we practice what we preach.
So I have a question, because I'm always interested in women and what else we're doing. You know, you're momming, you're wifing, you're producing, creating a TV show. How are you doing that? You used a phrase a minute ago when you answered Taylor. You said both and. I love both and. You're probably living that out as a woman and a mom. How are you doing what seems like it all?
I have help. I'm very thankful to have such hands-on parents. I've got friends that live locally that even recently, my executive producer and I went to a networking event. And so her husband, who's our director of photography, watched my daughter and brought our son to school. And so
Amazing.
I have a lot of help. And between my parents being here to watch the kids, even this morning, my parents are watching the kids. And so even though I brought my son to school, they're watching my daughter. And my husband is able to then, whenever he's not working, he's able to help with things. My mom, whenever she's in town, also just helps with picking up around the house. And so I have a lot of help.
I do think that's so important as moms, as wives, as women who are working. We have to have a village, and some people aren't lucky enough to be born into a village. So I would say to anybody in the audience, the way that you can help, you know, we talk about meaningful relationships a lot in both 518 and Vision 30. If we're going to achieve our goals individually and as a community, you've got to help be someone else's village. So, and I think it's great to admit that you need that help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, anytime that I look at so many elements of my life, I wouldn't be able to do half of what I can do without breaking down all the time if I didn't have help. And I think that in the day and age that we're in, with comparison being at an all-time high, because you can open up your phone for 2 seconds and see someone who is more put together than you, or prettier than you, and you see their highlight reel and think, well, they've got it all together. How are they doing that? And most of the time it's because they do have a village, or they do have help, or they are more financially well off, where they can then hire people to help. And even one of my dear friends, she and I do babysitting swapping a lot. And so for us to then be able to just, hey, I know it's last minute, but can I drop my son off? Yes, no problem. Or, just the help that I have with her. Yeah, it's not a one-woman show at all. It's very much because I have a village that I'm very thankful for.
Have you always been like that? Because this is probably surprising, I oftentimes think that I can do everything by myself. I don't accept help well. And I achieve more and have much more balance when people in my village are constantly saying, how can I help? And they really mean it.
Yeah.
If I say it to a friend, if I say it to someone else, how can I help you? I really mean that. So have you always been able and willing to accept that sort of help? Or have you realized, baby number 2, that you realized, oh gosh, I really do need some help? Or was it just natural to you?
I think that's also another both and situation, because I think that part of it, I was just fortunate to have met. So my friend Sonia is the one that I do babysitting swapping with. And our sons are almost the exact same age. They look very similar, so we always laugh because they're both blonde hair, blue eyed, and she and I are both dark eyes, dark hair. And we're like, we look like the nannies whenever we've got both these boys. And so it's almost like the timing of when she and I started doing our babysitting swapping, it allowed me to realize this is helping me so much more than I realized I even needed. So there are plenty of times where if people do ask, hey, can I help you in any way? By nature, it's easier for me to say, no, I've got it. But because my life is so full right now, it's a natural response for me to just say, since you're offering, this is where I need help. So I think I just ended up having help in ways that I didn't realize I needed it at the time. But it is way easier to just say, if someone offers, oh, can I bring you a meal? No, I've got it. I'm fine.
Right.
But we do, if we can get better we like to offer. And so, and I'm the same. If I offer help to someone, I not just offer. I will then double off. Like I'll say, no, I mean it.
Right.
I would love to help you in this way. You look like can I help pick up your kids? Can I bring you a meal? Can I DoorDash you something? So it's difficult to accept help and to ask for it sometimes.
I had somebody say to me, don't block your blessings. And I always think about that now when I would have said in the past, no, I've got it. And if someone's offering, oftentimes it's how they want to bless you. And you may be shutting off something that's important to the person who's trying to offer it to you.
I'm going to remember that. I like that.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
Accepting help is a muscle that needs to be exercised.
Yes.
For sure.
Life is messy, and sometimes people just need someone safe to talk to. We're here to listen because everyone's story should be heard. 518 Counseling exists to empower children, adults, and families to overcome past experiences and create a path to being stronger both mentally and spiritually. Family is a nuanced concept. 518's family care team brings simple solutions to complex situations through professional intervention, interpersonal support, and parenting education. We strive for an outcome of mending families and keeping children safe. 518's Connect team equips and empowers volunteers with the training and support to serve confidently by matching their passions with opportunities. Our outreach is targeted to build partnerships with individuals, churches, agencies, and businesses. At Hat Creek Camp, we provide exceptional camp experiences with careful attention to the needs of youth, encouraging campers to grow through trust-based challenges and successes. It's a place to build relationships, inspire change, and transform lives.
So think about what Torbee is today. You've just released the pilot season. How is it different in reality than you thought it would be?
You mean from when the idea first started? So I originally envisioned the show being so much more Mr. Rogers, where it was much slower. It was much more inviting kids to the space that Torbee is in and being more myself, but in the Torbee costume. And as we basically did some market research through our episodes, we realized the sharp decline of the viewing, even just with our friends and family, and asking friends, hey, what did your kids think? And they very quickly would say, oh, it was so cute. But it didn't grasp their attention. They weren't really interested. So the very original idea was much more slow. And it was also much more focused heavily on body safety and teaching kids how to feel empowered with being able to say, no, this is my personal space, or no, I don't want you to hug me. With things like that, we really originally saw that being a very integral and central theme of the show. And as it has blossomed, I realized I would rather be a sweet, wholesome kids show that slows things down in a fast-paced world in a way that parents can look at this and go, I need this on in my household. And then, as we become known as a sweet, wholesome kids show who also teaches safety, the safety can encompass all sorts of safety, including body safety. So then when parents go, well, I was never sexually abused growing up, so this probably wouldn't happen to my kids. They don't really need this. But then their kids come home from school and they find out, yeah, well, my classmate was telling me XYZ. If the parent now knows what to look for, and they can then, well, why don't we watch this kids episode? And we have resources that can go along with that for parents. Then it's more of, here's a resource that this show also provides, rather than the majority, at least reported, the majority of adults have not been sexually abused. It is technically, again, from what's been reported, a minority percentage of people. So then the majority of people feel like, well, that's not something I need to talk about with my kids. So when I would talk about that with people, that, oh, I'm doing this kids show and we're teaching about body safety, it was almost always this glazed over look, unless the person I was telling had been sexually abused growing up. So that was a big central theme to the show that has now become a foundational principle, but not what we lead with.
Gotcha. Where did that kind of desire come from to have that be a part of the show?
When I was probably 20, a friend of mine from high school had come back from a missions trip or something. And she said, I was working with these women that were saved from sex slavery and human trafficking. And I didn't really know what that meant, but there was just this little teeny tiny spark that kind of went off. And I thought, I would like to help with something like that someday. But I was knee deep in my acting career, and that's what I was passionate about. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll just think about that in the future. Then when we moved here to Lynchburg and we met Rachel, her name was Rachel. I think she's now since moved, but she was with Freedom 424. And we went to the gala. My husband and I were both literally sitting at the table, and I'm like weeping. And I was like, how cool that this is something that's central to this area, that this is a way that I can then get involved. So when I had the idea for Torbee, it started with, well, I could just be less annoying than this kid's show. And then maybe a few days later, I called Joy, who's the president of Freedom 424, and I said, hey, can we grab lunch? Because I have an idea. And so we sat down at this Mexican restaurant, and I'm telling her, listen, this is my idea. And I just envision that there's a kid in the future, and their parents or caregivers will go, fine, turn on this dumb show, Torbee. It's fine. Just throw it on. Just stop talking to me. Let me have some time to myself. And so this kid who's being abused can watch this episode of Torbee that is talking about, hey, if anyone ever tells you to keep a secret, you don't have to keep a secret. You can always go and find a safe adult that you can tell whatever it was. If there's something that makes you uncomfortable or makes you feel ooey gooey inside, you can always talk about that with a safe adult. I just envision that there's this kid, even if it's one kid in the future that is being abused, watching it, that can go and actually say something. And both Joy and I were like sitting in this Mexican restaurant, like sobbing, because we were like, how cool that YouTube is a platform that has tons of darkness. It's got so much bad content. It's got plenty of good content, but there is so much bad content that is available for free for anyone who's got a computer, a laptop, or an iPad. And how cool is the opportunity for us to be this light in the darkness in this way for kids. So it started from just a little tiny glimmer 15 years ago.
Just watching you right now tell the story and you get teary. I love a question that I read in a book one time, and it says, why do you weep? Oftentimes that's your calling. Oftentimes that's your why. And just recounting that story, it makes you want to weep. So you're doing this for a real purpose. You want to create a show that's not annoying, but you also want to create a show that could change lives. And when I first met you, it was through the Vision 30 gathering. And so at every monthly gathering, there's a video played about the two rivers. And Torbee is going to be shown to children who are on the healthy river. And it's also going to be shown to children who are on the unhealthy river. And I think it's important to realize that you you're not in the foster care space. You're not in that space, but you're in the prevention space.
Yes.
And when you think about the name of this podcast is Mended Futures, you're doing work that's going to mend futures. You might help parents have conversations with kids that they don't know how to. You may be setting the stage for that. You might be helping parents heal through some childhood traumas, through parenting their own children. And I think it is so important for us. And I believe in our village. I think you do too.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for us to realize that futures can be mended fairly quickly. Within a generation, oftentimes parents are preventing childhood traumas that they experience and the power of going farther upstream. And you may not be standing in the river rescuing children who are abused, but you may be the one in Torbee who's on the side of the river banks yelling to the people, are you seeing this? Do you realize this is happening?
Yes.
Or keeping the kids from falling in.
Yes, keeping the kids from falling in. And I think we're really, really good at intervention. Just as a culture, we're really good. It's heroic. It's it's
more
all
visible, yeah.
It's all the things. We get the outputs and the outcomes. We get the funding for intervention. But the idea of prevention, you're about as far upstream as you could go in this whole parenting Vision 30 sphere, making families stronger.
Yeah.
But there could also be some reconciliation there too. It could, have you ever thought about that before? How could this lead to reconciliation? Do you think that parents watching it would ever have conversations with people in their family? It could be even reconciliatory.
I've never thought about that. No. We do think that we'd like to be as much of a resource to kids as we can be for parents. And the way that we want to show up for parents is by whenever we do release different episodes around safe secrets or body safety, that we also lead with a prequel on our social channels and any other channels that parents would be able to see. If we've got a newsletter for our email subscriber list that maybe one day we'll have, we don't now, but if we were to be able to tell parents and caregivers, hey, by the way, we've got an episode that's coming out. Here's how it's a resource for you. Here's how it can set up some breadcrumbs for you to be able to know, how do I navigate this conversation with my kids? If they ask me these types of questions, what answers do I give them? Where can I turn for the right answers? How do I know what the right answers are? We can then be a facilitator of, here are other companies and resources that you can go and go farther with the answers to your questions. But we kind of help to set that up and tee that off. But as for reconciliation, no, I'd never even thought about that. I love that idea.
I just love it.
I know.
It's all, I just think what you do and the idea of villages on the personal level and on the macro organizational level, it's just so apparent. I think part of the reason why we wanted to do this podcast was to have, anyone be able to come on and tell their story, because everyone needs a village, no matter who you are, what you're trying to do, where you come from. But also the Vision 30 side of things, where it's creating a collaborative village of organizations. It's full of organizations and individuals and churches and groups who are willing to say, hey, we can't fix every problem for a family, but we can point you to resources that we can't provide.
Yeah.
And it's already apparent that everything just goes hand in hand. And so it's been encouraging to see.
You're living it out. And I think about our generation of parents. We're trying to parent kids in a world that we didn't grow up in. And I think that you're going to occupy children and you're going to teach them, but you're going to impact multiple generations. Even if you're trying not to listen to a kid's show, you are listening. We can sing the jingles. We can have the annoying accents. We can all the things. So even if you're not tuned in like your child is, you're absorbing some of that. And I think the content that you're putting out there, more parents and grandparents, you're going to impact multiple generations of people, and you're going to help parents realize, oh man, maybe in the 80s or the 90s, we didn't have to talk about these things. But now that you talked about the darkness that's out there on a lot of channels, we have to have conversations that our parents didn't have with us. So I think you're probably modeling a lot of that. And then I'm glad that the audience here, and maybe they're not local, will realize that there's a resource out there. If you think about Mr. Rogers, he was just like an extended family member.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Torbee is going to be an aunt or an auntie to a lot of kids that you've never met before.
That would be the dream.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to be available to more kids and families.
Mm-hmm.
Your episodes come out primarily on YouTube, right?
Yes.
And your episodes are categorized by color.
Mhm.
So what are the different colors and what do they represent?
Yes. We decided to categorize things by colors because we felt like it was going to be helpful to parents and caregivers, but then also selfishly, it was helpful on the creative side
Mhm.
to figure out, okay, well, we can teach anything in the entire world. So where in the world do you begin?
Mhm.
So we categorize everything by color. Red is for emotions and safety. Yellow is for language and story time. Green is nature and exploring. Blue is math and numbers. And purple is imagination and creativity. And each of those colors also then has its own feel. So the idea behind it is if a parent or a caregiver is thinking, I really want my kid to be excited about going outside. They've been cooped up in the house all day. It's beautiful outside. I don't want to just yell at them to go outside or close the door. So I'll put on a nature and exploring episode. Let me grab some green episodes from Torbee, and my kids can watch as Torbee goes exploring. And it's very much you get to then watch wonder unfold on the screen.
Mm.
Or, okay, well, my kid has all these things in the house to play with, and I want them to use their imagination, or, I want them to be excited about making some crafts in a really simple way. So I can throw on a purple episode so that my kids can be excited about doing something imaginative. Or the red ones are much more teaching based.
Mhm.
And so each of them have a very specific feel. But that way you can either then watch all the things, it doesn't need to be specific, or you can just stick to one specific theme to help you what you're trying to do.
That is so thoughtful.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine how many hours it took you to get to such an intentional way to share the content.
So many hours. But time worth spent.
Do you have a favorite category?
Oh, that's a good question. Right now it's a toss-up between yellow and green.
Mhm.
Because story time is fun because we are reading all old stories. Right now we can really only do public domain stories.
Mm.
So it's fun being able to relive elements of my own childhood with then these really old stories. And I like being able to sit down and read stories with my kids. But sometimes I'll be honest, if I've had a full day, I
Mhm.
don't really want to sit and read a long book. So I feel like for me, I wanted to make the yellow storytime episodes to be something that if I felt like I want to do something calm with my kids that promotes reading, so let's just throw this episode on so we can just sit and relax together for a little bit, but we're not watching a movie.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where the yellow ones are. But then with the green ones, we discovered that we like doing them in kind of a music videos type of way where
Cool.
Torbee's not talking through them. And so it's just, again, watching the wonder unfold on the screen. And I was talking with someone yesterday, and he said, I, as an adult, liked watching this because I felt like I was re-inspired to have wonder in my life and to slow down.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
such a compliment.
yes, I literally said that was the nicest thing you could have said about anything
Yeah.
of the show. And so there's an element then of just being able to enjoy watching Torbee explore and watching nature and just, I would say those are my two favorite colors right now.
Do you have any stories from your market research with kids, or since the pilot season has come out, do you have any stories of kids who've watched Torbee and have had aha moments, or have parents shared with you anything that Torbee has sparked in their households?
The type of feedback we've been getting so far is that one of the moms that we've talked to said this is the only thing that I let my kids watch because I trust what I'm putting on in my home. I know that it's not overstimulating. We have gotten tons of feedback from friends of friends of friends and distant connections where they've said, oh my gosh, like we just love how calm this is. We love how much more peaceful this is. So that's the type of feedback that we've been getting so far, which is exactly what we've wanted. Because when we were first starting our episodes and we would ask people, hey, do you have any feedback? What did you think of this? the type of feedback that we were getting was, oh, this is great. Maybe you should add some pop-ups. Maybe you should add some more exciting music, or maybe this could go a little bit faster. And we would say, thank you so much for your feedback. We're like, no, that's not what we want to do. That goes against, but we were never going to tell people, oh, what a horrible idea. That's not what we wanted to do for the show.
You're intentionally slowing it down.
Yes.
And as I think about myself as a younger mother, I was always ramped up. And anybody who knows me in real life, my anxiety has anxiety, and usually my brain already has a soundtrack. If there was a overstimulating kids show on anywhere, the music made me feel manic as the mom in the house. And I always wondered, very popular shows often had really upbeat, manic music going on, and I would sing it in my head for the rest of the day. Or my husband would say, I cannot believe that they were watching whatever the show is because I cannot get that song out of my head. So I think that there are very subliminal things that happen that you're not even aware that's happening. So I love that you are bringing calm and peace, because we really live in a very overstimulating world. Our kids' brains are so different than ours were.
Well, and what's interesting is, so we know that we are still fine-tuning some of the different elements within either some of the colors or how we present certain information, and realizing, okay, we liked this, but here's how we can improve upon that. We'll probably do that for the rest of time. We'll always just continually find how we can improve or what we can do in a different way. But we know that there is an element to our show that will be more parent-driven for a little while, simply because kids are so used to seeing stuff that's so overstimulating. Mm-hmm. So in a household like the mom that told us, oh, Torbee's the only thing that we watch, well, there was no relearning for her kids because they didn't watch any screen time before Torbee. But for kids that have watched other things, they may get a little bored at certain points. And so some of that goes back to us and figuring out, okay, so how do we make this a little more engaging without losing sight of the foundation of our show? But also some of it will be, in our household, one of the shows that we love is Bluey. Mm-hmm. Bluey is fantastic. It is a little overstimulating, but it's one that we give it a pass because it's so great. Mm-hmm. But my son did not like Bluey at the beginning, but because I liked it, I said, no, we're watching this and you will like this. Yes. And so we've made jokes we've said, well, if parents get on board with Torbee and their kids kind of like it, then as long as we've got those parents that are raving fans about what the show stands for, and that we desperately don't want to be overstimulating, we don't want to be addicting and tantrum inducing. Mm-hmm. And of course we love that kids are going to want to watch Torbee, and we want for them to be excited about the next episode. But central to the theme of our show is also that we're the bridge between screen time and playtime, so that when kids are then turning the TV off, they're actually inspired by what they saw Torbee do, that they are excited to go and do something with their toys, or, okay, well, now I can go outside. And now when the TV is going off, it makes it an easier process for everybody. So we know that there's going to be a little bit of that learning curve almost, maybe with some households. But as long as we've got the parents that are excited, then we know the kids will follow suit.
I love that. And I am a big proponent of teaching kids to be bored.
Yes.
I was about to say a very similar thing. Yeah.
My kids think that boredom is so unusual, or it's so
of the devil.
It's so rare. It's such a drag. There's beauty in boredom. Think about how many things wouldn't have happened in our world if people weren't bored. So I wonder if you could, and you may already be doing this, but if you could introduce that and normalize it to parents, that it's really normal to be bored.
That's one of the ideas that we have on the table.
We've got
a lot of different things so between my executive producer and she and I are like the perfect duo of where we'll come up with ideas. She's a teacher and she's got a master's in English. Mm-hmm. And so she comes from that side of it. And then me being a parent, living it out, having experiences with my kids, or realizing I wish there was something that I could put on to drive the point home that I have, or I wish that I had an idea for how to handle chores in the house and how do we do that. And so between both her and I, we're able to come up with a lot of these different ideas. And so we've got like a plethora of things that we're sitting on going, okay, well, when we have the time and when we have the ability, we want to turn either this into a series or we want to do this with our puppets. So boredom is one that we'd like to introduce and have like a whole episode with our puppets, where then they are just doing things and you're able to just watch them kind of figure that out. So
Board puppets.
board
I'm here
yes,
for it.
yes.
Oh, I love
Yes,
that.
I'm
So-
here for it.
It's in the idea stage, but
Yeah. It's flipping the idea of entertainment on its head. It's like,
Mhm.
here, watch these puppet characters be bored.
yeah, it's kind of like
That's
a
awesome.
Seinfeld.
Yes,
Like
yes,
let's make
the
a
show
show
about
about nothing.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Do your kids like the show?
they do. They do. My son will constantly do things where he'll make them with like yellow and black patterns because since Torbee's shirt is yellow with thin black stripes, he'll make patterns to look like Torbee's shirt and he'll say, Mama, this looks like Torbee.
Oh.
And we just came out with the Nature Scavenger Hunt episode, which I love how that one came together. And so we came out with it yesterday and I showed my daughter and she watched it twice. And so she liked it so much. And so,
Yay.
yeah, they both like it.
Amazing.
My son, I wouldn't say is like a raving fan because it's watching his mom on TV.
Right.
And so especially if he's mad at me for whatever 100 of reasons, then no, I don't want to watch Torbee.
I don't want to talk to Mama.
Yes, I don't want to watch her either. So, but
Wait
yeah.
until he's 14.
And then he'll really not want to talk to me.
I was just curious because the idea of Torbee kind of came from watching shows with your son before your daughter was born. Do you think that as your kids get older and you're interacting with the things that they're interacting with, that it'll spark more ideas for things for you to do in the future?
Yes.
Or as you get older, because Torbee is a youthful character, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And you said it was cringy when you were really young to play the old mom, but do you see Torbee getting more mature because of the age of your children and or because of your age?
So we're in the early stages of kind of how that can play out in the future. Right now, one of the ideas that we've been kind of tossing around is what if we start to add more characters so that as Torbee does get older, because since Torbee is a youthful character, Mr. Rogers was able to grow because he was a neighbor, right?
Mhm.
He was a friend of your family. So he started at a younger age and then grew, but that was more normal because he was a man that was just growing
Mhm.
and aging. Torbee is a youthful character, and we had even talked about, I said, I struggle with, I will probably dye my hair as I start to go gray, but there's a part of me that if I am trying to teach kids and encourage them to love you for exactly how you are, then how do I then dye my hair? And something as simple as, now again, I probably will dye my hair. There's no problem with dyeing your hair. I wear makeup, so
Right.
it's not like you can then go so hard and fast and be so legalistic on certain things because you could play devil's advocate in so many ways, right? But we have talked about that okay, well, as Torbee does start to age, how do we then handle that? So we think that we would like to introduce other adult characters that will also then maybe age with kids because we've talked about how when our kids get older and they're in high school, at least at this stage of high school, they're not teaching things of how to balance checkbooks or how to do your taxes. And there's the whole joke that comes around every tax season of, I'm so glad that I learned about parallelograms in high school because it comes in comes in handy every parallelogram season, you know? And so we've got taxes every year, but we don't learn about taxes in school. And healthy boundaries and healthy relationships. And even, when you take it even to the extreme of sextortion and kids don't realize what that looks like with sexting and all these things. And so we have talked about how the character of Torbee can't reach preteens and high schoolers. Torbee is a youthful, elementary, 10 and under character. But if we could add and almost have one of my songwriters, his name's Andrew, and he and I go way back to our middle school days. We were we were both the leads in South Pacific in 8th grade. And but so he's one of our songwriters and he's wonderful. And he had the idea, he said, what if you've got almost like a Torbee Marvel universe where you've got all these characters that serve for different purposes? And so we've got lots of different ideas for how that can then start to grow with other kids and age with other kids, but also then serve other purposes that Torbee has a very limited range of what she can serve. And so we're in the idea phase for that.
Very cool. Well, I mean, we've loved having you. It's been so fun.
I've loved being here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Is there anything we didn't ask you
Yeah.
that you want to share or wish you could share?
So Torbee is filmed, produced, and everything here in Lynchburg. So even though, yes, YouTube is our avenue in how we're reaching people, which obviously has then a national and a global potential, we always want to have strong Lynchburg roots. So it's important to us we've got community events that we do. We've actually been doing a story time with Torbee at White Heart. We just started last week. and that's on the second Sunday of every month. So that's at White Hart. We're going to be working with the Pink Flamingo Play Cafe in Forest, where we're doing also story time with Torbee there. We've got craft time with Torbee that we're doing at the Academy Center of the Arts. So we're doing these different fun little events in that way. But we can have national sponsorships and partnerships, but we would rather have our national sponsor or our sponsors be local so that we can really be promoting local Lynchburg companies, businesses, regional and local to this area. So that's a big thing. Also, one of the things that's important to us is being able to be in more homes and be seen by more kids and families and schools and educators. And so liking and subscribing to the show. And if you like it, sharing about it with your friends and family. That's probably the biggest thing that we could have right now.
Thank you for listening to the Mended Futures Podcast, recorded at the corporate offices of 518 Family Services in Lynchburg, Virginia. The hosts of this podcast are Taylor Melvin and Allison Jordan, produced by Liam Chafin, Zoli Jugar, Sue England, Taylor Melvin, and Allison Jordan, and the executive producers are Robert Day and Claudia Fletcher.